If you've been following how Uno for the last few years, uh, you might see how we're trying to like stick to agile processes, to ship frequently, uh, how we value test automation and coverage across all of our repos. And that's why today I'm honored to introduce you to Ben Askren from Toyota. Toyota, a company that's been a leader, a pioneer, I would say, in the lean manufacturing and quality and focus engineering. So, hi, Ben.
Hey, Francois. How are you doing today?
Good yourself.
I'm great. And thank you so much for having me. And especially thank you for all the hard work that you and your team has done to make it such a great product. It's made my life so much easier.
It's our pleasure, and I think it's a great opportunity. And thank you so much to be here and like pretty much share with our community the why and how you've been using Uno lately and why it's of value to Toyota.
Oh, no problem at all. I'd love to. I'll start by talking a little bit about where Toyota is with developing applications for mobile. Right now, we basically have a couple different platforms to work with. Xamarin Forms was brought into the business about 6 years ago. That first was a vehicle data collection app, and then we did this quality inspection traceability app that I'm talking about today. These are deployed throughout North America. We've got 2 plants in Mexico, 8 plants here in the United States, and 2 more plants in Canada. And in all these applications, we have some common pain points. Android performance has always been really painful for us. A lot of work goes into Android, and we have never been satisfied with that. iOS reliability has been an issue. There's been issues with regard to observable collections behaving poorly with list views in iOS. And then, of course, the big pain point we've had now for several years has been deploying line of business applications for UWP, whether they're native UWP, but more importantly, Xamarin Forms in our case, since the Microsoft Store for Business has been obsoleted a year ago. And a year before that for the beta processes. Those have been really bad pain points for us. When Xamarin Forms into life came up on our radar, I went to the business and said, this is an opportunity. We ought to really look at this seriously. Had spent some time working with Uno in a different context and was immediately strongly biased towards Uno because of the maturity of the platform. But Toyota's processes are very disciplined. Toyota has an entire enterprise board responsible for that. So I'll get into that in a minute, but before I do, I just want to talk a little bit about the application in particular that we decided we were going to try to push through the business and make it our first test case for migration away from Xamarin Forms. And that application was a quality inspection and traceability tool built on Xamarin Forms. We used the Azure Mobile SDK. We actually had our own fork of it because of our differences in our cloud infrastructure. We used Forms and iPatch for pop-ups and for virtual keyboard management, HTML formatting of text into Xamarin Form labels, Forms gestures for long presses. We use the Zing.net mobile for barcode scanning from the camera. Then we used Symbols, Xamarin EM SDK for their Zebra handheld devices, and Honeywell's Captiva SDK for their iOS Captiva sleds for barcode scanning. And then we use the Bluetooth LE plugin in some instances. So going back to what I said a moment ago, the Toyota Enterprise Standards is a very rigorous process. And the result of it is that when you complete that process, you're an official standard. When we brought Xamarin Forms into the business 6 years ago, we went through that process. And right now, there's really only 2 approved platforms besides purely native apps, and that's Cordova Ionic, which if you're biased towards an HTML kind of JavaScript developer, that makes sense. But if you've got something with a bit more complexity in it, Xamarin Forms is our choice at the time. With this migration, we had 18 criteria that we had to meet, and those were mostly biased on what the enterprise group wanted, which is summary, it was maturity and long-term support. But our group was looking for more than that. We really were looking for how much migration effort were we going to have to put into this? And then even more importantly was, what were the pain points that we had to deal with? And we were very concerned about those pain points. So our stack transition, Uno platform was the clear winner on that. And it was the clear winner largely because of the reliability and the support level. We'll talk more about that in a second too. Azure Mobile SDK was not updated for the more modern .NET 5, 6. And so we ended up going to what is now the new standard, which is Microsoft Data Sync. Those two had a very different SDK surface, and so that required a significant amount of effort. Because of how complete the Uno platform was with regard to its SDK surface, Forms 9 patch, Forms gestures were just not necessary. Because of how well it was architected with Uno, we went ahead and just quickly did a fork. In fact, this was our trial case to see if Uno was going to work for us. And we went ahead and forked the Zing.net mobile forms library and made it into our own Zing.net mobile Uno library just to see how difficult it was. And we were very pleased with how well that effort went. Not only going from Xamarin Forms, but also going to .NET 6. And then the whole process of dealing with the third-party libraries from Symbol and Honeywell, it was completely drop-in. There was no effort required other than changing it from Net Standard 2.0 to .NET 6. Very simple. And so the insights we gained from there were some surprising insights. One is that the majority of effort wasn't with the UI transformation. In fact, I would say that compared to the other platforms we looked at, and they're all the ones you can think of, the usual suspects, the UI transformation was actually the most pleasant part of our experience. And personally, it was because we had C# markup. We actually wrote our own flavor of it. And looking at what we have here, it looks almost exactly what is being presented today. And I'm in love with it. And that effort was very enjoyable, and the team really liked it. What was really surprising was how much effort we had to put in to do Microsoft Data Sync client migration, largely because the SDK surface was different, which means that all of our view models were basically blown up. And in addition to that, the performance of the Data Sync client wasn't as good as we wanted to do. So we did have to spend some time optimizing that to be able to address, for example, serialization performance. The other thing that we learned as we went through this process is we'd already been halfway through the process of updating our view models when we discovered MVUX. And had we discovered MVUX before, we would have used it. It certainly was definitely designed for our use case, and when we saw it, we're very excited about it. So our next migration effort is very likely going to use MVUX. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was just how happy we were with the uniform platform support. Being able to work with different support teams from different organizations, whether it's, for example, our cloud monitoring service support or Microsoft support for the issues we've had with UWP deployment. Uno's platform support, particularly the community support, has been really our go-to to make things happen. So we're very happy with that. It just emphasizes the maturity of the platform when you have folks who are so dedicated to make sure that there's answers there, and that when you come with an issue, it's taken seriously and it's not just delegated to someone who really doesn't understand the platform or the user base. So all those have been really key for us to make the decision, and we've been very happy with it. And that's what we want to share today. And also, of course, just thank you so much. It's been really a pleasure using your platform.
Thank you, Ben. It's amazing to see this in action. And I think it tells a great story about like some of the migration challenges of going from a platform that's now end of life and how you need to deal with third-party migrations as well. But and clearly personally looking forward to your next application using MVUX, a personal favorite of mine.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Thanks for being part of this growing community. Appreciate it.
All right. Bye-bye.